Housing sales in the Toronto real estate market crashed another 47% in July. And the president of the Toronto Real Estate Board, TRREB, probably put out one of the most embarrassing quotes in the history of Canadian real estate. The definitive guide on how to manage your credit, product, penalty, price in that order. It's never been more important to get your mortgage right. All right, so welcome back. Today we're discussing the Toronto real estate market and what is going on there. TRREB is reporting that housing sales fell by 47% year over year in July. And we're gonna talk a little bit later on about what that means for prices, because prices have come down pretty significantly off the highs of March. But if you look at the data that TRREB is showing you, and this is, by the way, normal data that you would expect a real estate board to put out, they're looking at year over year price points. And if you look at the year over year price points, it doesn't look like prices have come down significantly. But if you take a look at March versus July, there is a significantly different picture being painted. And I'm going to show you just how much real estate prices have fell off the highs in every single market. But before we get into it, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. Okay, so let's get into our Toronto real estate update for July of 2022 or August of 2022, because that's the month that we're doing it in. And this is really interesting. I'm going to endeavor to give you guys the best stats possible. And that starts with me going deep into the data and comparing March to July. I'm going to show you that in just a second. But before we do that, I want to show you a few things that have happened with respect to the headlines. First and foremost, I have to show you this tweet. This was put out by the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. And this quote has been plastered absolutely everywhere. It's ridiculous how many people have posted this and how many places you can find this quote right now. This is the quote from Kevin Krieger. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. This is the president of the Toronto Real Estate Board. He said this: with significant increases to lending rates in a short period, there's been a shift in consumer sentiment, not market fundamentals. This has to be one of the most embarrassing tweets in Canadian real estate history. This is the type of tweet that would make it into the headlines of The Daily Show, because quite frankly, interest rates, which affect qualifying rates, which affect buying power, are the fundamentals of the real estate market. How much people can afford to buy dictates the prices of real estate, and in a lot of ways, the demand for real estate. Now, there's a whole bunch of other things that play into that: immigration, rental rates, whole bunch of stuff. But the primary fundamental thing that plays into the fundamentals of real estate is affordability and how much people can afford. And it's really interesting. He goes on in a couple of the different articles to talk about the fact that the federal government should take steps to increase affordability, maybe switch up the stress test, maybe do things like increase amortizations. But this tweet is absolutely embarrassing. And I sincerely hope they take it down before a lot more people find out about this, because this is the type of tweet that makes real estate agents look really, really bad. It's like, oh, interest rates went up, qualification amounts changed, affordability changed, but the fundamentals are the same. It's okay, still buy a house. That is the number one criticism that realtors face. It's that they're always positive about the market, always trying to sell a house. And the reality here is we need to call a spade a spade. The fundamentals have changed. And a little bit later on, I'm going to show you what you can do in the face of those changing fundamentals to make sure that you can still buy with confidence. But I'm also not going to tell you that you should just go out and buy real estate because it's a really good deal right now, because that's not necessarily the case either. But taking you in and showing you the headlines here, I want to jump you into BNN, show you the headline here: Toronto home prices extend slide as July sales plummet. If you go and you take a look here, here's that quote about the fundamentals. Like I said, this thing showed up everywhere. It also showed up in the TRREB market stats. And I just want to show you a little bit about the data, and then I'm going to jump into the actual individual markets in the Toronto area and show you just how bad the situation is with respect to housing prices and why I believe that those housing prices have changed. So let's start by looking at two of the most important factors here: total residential transactions. Now you can see compared to July of last year, these are down significantly. That's because we had a significant amount of exuberance in the market last July. This is when everybody was going, I need to buy now or I may never be able to buy again. If you go back and you take a look at a bunch of my videos, contrary to what some of the people in the comments will tell you, I was telling people, do not buy in competing offer situations if you absolutely do not have to. And now we find ourselves in a situation where sales are down 47%. There's less pressure in the market, and that's leading to lower housing prices. And if you take a look at the housing prices of July compared to June, you can see they've come down about 2.6%. Now they've come down significantly more than that off of the highs, which were in March. But if you take a look at the year-over-year stats, this is the one that tends to be misleading. In a normal market, it tends to be very useful data. But in a market like right now, where we've had this significant run up and now we've seen this drop again, what you can see is that the housing prices in July of this year compared to July of last year look like they're pretty similar. But housing prices were about $200,000 to $300,000 higher in March, and we need to take that into consideration when we're looking at the numbers. So the reason why I want to show you all this, and the reason why I think this is really important lead up to what I'm going to show you next, is because housing prices have come down. And the reason why they have come down is because of higher interest rates. But they haven't come down across the country. If you look at areas like Calgary, like Edmonton, the prairie provinces, there are markets that are still up in value or are still fairly flat compared to the March highs. And the reason for that is because they didn't have that irrational exuberance that some of the other markets had. But in certain areas of Toronto and certain areas of Vancouver, where we saw this chaos in the market, we're seeing the interest rates have the desired effect, which is the calming of the market, which is leading to lower prices. Now, as the Toronto Real Estate Board president is asking for more affordability measures in the Canadian economy and in the mortgage market, the reality of it here is that is the last thing that needs to happen, because the reason why Toronto's home prices are down is because things got crazy and now there is some reality setting in because of higher interest rates. It's not happening across the country, but it is very much a significant issue in Toronto. So I want to take you in and I want to show you actual housing prices for different areas. And this is a March to July comparison. So this isn't a typical comparison that you would see in normal TRREB stats, in any real estate board stats, but I want to show you just how much housing prices have declined in certain areas off of their highs. So I went in and I found all the data, put this together so that you could see the actual reductions. And upon first look, what you quickly realize is that the picture isn't really rosy. There is a lot of red numbers here. So to explain this sheet to you real quickly, the left column is the area. The first column is the March prices. The third column is July prices. And this one, column 1 here, this is the change in prices. And as you can see, it's pretty much negative across the board. And as you take a look through here, you can see that some markets have fared better than others. Markets like Caledon are down not as much, but markets like Burlington are down pretty significantly. Now, not every market in the Toronto area is down. There's certain areas here, if you look at Bradford, I'm not sure what's going on there and why housing prices have remained high in that area. In fact, they're up from March. But if you go and you take a look at this City of Toronto breakout. So City of Toronto has different areas. It's broken into East, West, and Central. There are certain areas of the City of Toronto that are up. And if you look at them, C09 and C12, they're up pretty significantly compared to last year. Now, the question is why? And I don't know the Toronto real estate market inside out. So I reached out to my buddy Tom Story, who is probably one of the best realtors on YouTube in Canada. Steve Karish is also an honorable mention. I feel like I have to say his name when I say Tom's now so that he gets the equal amount of weight of my YouTube followers. But if you go and you take a look at Tom's channel, he has a lot of really great information. So I reached out to him via text message and I said, hey, can you tell me what's going on in Toronto in C12? And he said this. He said, this is one of the higher end areas of the city. This is a place where guys like Drake live. And what he thinks is happening in this area is that higher interest rates aren't affecting the ultra wealthy. And therefore, the people who would demand a high end property aren't necessarily as susceptible to those higher rates and therefore are still continuing to buy in those higher end areas. And if you take a look at a lot of the areas that are still in the black here, you can see $2.3 million, $3.14 million, $2.382 million. You can see that very much the interest rates aren't affecting those super high end areas the way they are affecting the rest of the Toronto areas. So really interesting stats here, really interesting numbers. And I think the moral of the story here is that the interest rates have affected the fundamentals. The fundamentals have changed. The borrowing costs have changed. The qualification amounts have changed. The cost to own a home has changed. What hasn't changed is that the people who aren't necessarily affected by higher interest rates aren't changing their buying habits, but everyone else has. And the reason why is really, really simple. It's this irrational piece where everyone got crazy, went out and bought in a frothy market, got into bidding wars. And that was a phenomenon that was very much central to the Toronto market, to the Vancouver market, and several other markets. And the higher interest rates has basically said to consumers, and this is how it's changed consumer sentiment. It said, hey, housing costs are going up. Maybe it isn't such a good idea to get into that bidding war while interest rates are also increasing. And then you've got other markets, which we'll do a Calgary real estate update in the next couple of days here, which are faring fairly normal because they didn't get into those crazy bidding wars. So the fundamental that has changed is this. It's consumer sentiment. Absolutely. But the consumer sentiment has changed because the underlying fundamentals, which are borrowing costs, have changed significantly. So I feel bad for the president of TRREB. He's going to take a pretty significant roasting over this quote that he put out. And at the end of the day, I think they're probably going to have to do some damage control with respect to realtors and how they are always positive about the market, even when it isn't necessarily the right time to be positive. Now, this all leads me into what you need to know about buying a house in 2022. The reality of it is this, is if you are somebody who is looking to buy a property in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, the reality is this, you need to be better informed than all the people that did it in the last 2 years. Because the single biggest mistake that people made was that they relied on their real estate agent in order to give them advice on how to purchase a property. But they didn't necessarily get the best advice on whether it was the right time to buy. And yes, there was markets where it was the right time to buy, but there were also markets like the Toronto market in March where it was quite obvious that it was not the right time to buy. Buying in bidding wars in the face of rising interest rates was definitely something that was not recommended on this channel. I don't care what the people in the comments say. It is something that just didn't happen. So in order to combat this, because going forward, the best line of defense for people who are buying a home is to have the best information possible. And the best information possible means taking control of the education process, not just going to one person and getting advice, but knowing at least as much about what your situation is and what the process is as they do. So in order to facilitate that, I've put together something that I think is just absolutely phenomenal. We're calling it the Homebuyer Masterclass. And this class is designed to give you all the information that you need to be super informed. And yes, we've had our first time homebuyer bootcamp in the past. That was a great course. That just touches on the information that we're going to put in the Homebuyer Masterclass. So what we're going to do in the masterclass is we are going to make it modular so that every piece of the transaction, whether it is saving for a down payment, writing a contract, what you need to know about home inspections, every piece is there for when you need it. So throughout your process of buying a home, whether it is in the next month or 2 months, or whether it's in the next year to 3 years, you're going to know exactly what to do at each individual time. In a lot of ways, you're going to be more informed than the realtor that you choose on exactly how to go throughout the process. In fact, I've included 9 negotiation tactics that many real estate agents don't even know exist that you can use when writing an offer in order to get a better deal on a home. Because as real estate values go down, there are going to be opportunities to buy a home for cheaper. And we want to make sure that you have all the tricks and tactics in order to make sure that when you are negotiating, you can get the best deal. So we've set this all up. You can go to homebuyermasterclass.ca in order to sign up for the course. We're going to do it in cohorts. So in other words, we're going to have a fall session that starts September 12th. Then maybe we'll have a winter session and then a spring session and then a summer session, but you're only going to be able to get access to the course for a short period of time once a quarter. Now, don't worry. Once you have access to it, you have lifetime access to the course. So whether you get into this cohort or the next one or the one that follows, you will always be able to access the information once you have it. So as of right now, you can sign up at homebuyermasterclass.ca for an incredibly good price. I'm not going to share what the price is, but you can get it today only. After that, there's going to be early bird pricing for August 31st. And then after that, you'll have one last chance to sign up prior to September 11th. And after that, if you aren't signed up, you're going to have to wait until the next cohort, which will likely be December or January of this year. And the deal that you're going to get if you sign up today for it, like I said, is going to be phenomenal. In fact, even if you aren't planning on buying a home in the next 3 months, having access now and starting that process and that journey of learning about the real estate process is going to be worth every penny. Plus, we've put in some incentives, some credits with Mortgage 360. You get some one-on-one time with me, which is something that nobody gets unless you're a client, except in this one rare scenario. And like I said, you're going to get a whole ton of insider information. So if you want to check it out, go to homebuyermasterclass.ca. And if you found this video useful, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video, and we'll see you on the very next one. Cheers.